You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
So things are kind of messy here. We've all kind of sort of moved recently, and we're trying to get our collective acts together, cope with late summer heat, which always is horrendous. We need another visit from something, like a visit from ET to straighten us out, because we are sure in a messy situation, aren't we? So what have you been up to in recent weeks that our listeners want to know about?
Well, we're, again, the San Luis Valley camera project is, it's been a really frustrating process over the years, but we finally did a conference call with our ISP guy, and we have a retired teacher and scientist in Crestone who's up about 400 feet off the valley floor and has a real good line of sight with our tower. So Ken Swinehart, the ISP, the owner of AmigaNet's, climbing the tower and going to put up our first camera. And then he's already checked the line of sight configuration for how big of a transceiver dish that he needs to put up on our new location in Crestone's house. We're going to be doing two birds with one stone, basically. We're going to have two cameras up at once in one fell swoop, basically. We should be looking at being operational here in the next couple of weeks with two cameras, not just one. So pretty excited about that. Everybody's on the same page. We're not having any problems with line of sight like we did in the Alamosa location. And so we're pretty excited. This is going to be really nice to get two cameras up and have them talking to each other on extremely fast internet, T2 speeds. So this is pretty exciting news. Other than that, like you said, we're dealing with the heat. My new place is very difficult to keep cool. It almost forces me to leave the house. I'm also working on a follow-up to Stalking the Herd, and I'm also working on another book, which is going to be looking at the occult side of ufology and how ritual and occult subjects have been intertwined with ufology for probably thousands of years. And so I'm going to be doing a look at that, and I'm also developing a new talk PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to be taking on the road, which will look at this particular subject as well. So I've been keeping busy.
The camera project here, I've always been interested in anything that will allow us to monitor paranormal activity. What bothers me very much here is the fact that we have these other projects about UFO detection systems and things like that, and they never go anywhere.
It's difficult. It's not easy. Hasdallen is the only one that's really been pulled off, but that's only a single camera, so you can't really triangulate data with only one camera, obviously. You need at least a minimum of two. And Mark D'Antonio and Douglas Trumbull's UFO TOG program is dead in the water for some reason. I'm not sure why. Haven't heard hide nor hair of anything from Mark Rodiger and Leslie Keane about the UFO data idea.
This is interesting here. You and I talked to them on the Paracast, I don't know, quite some time ago. And you offered your services.
Yeah.
And I guess they contacted you once or twice and then...
Never followed up, yeah.
So why does none of this ever get done?
It's a variety of reasons. Biting off more than you can chew. Obviously, when you're beholden on people doing you favors instead of paying people to do things, you're at their mercy. My particular project, we ran in our first location. We ran into problems because they were moving out of the building. Remember, we did have the camera up for 6 months on top of a building in downtown Alamosa, and AmigaNet moved, so we had to take down the camera. And our second location, the guy kind of flipped out because his kids couldn't download movies. He couldn't get his mail. There was just enough bandwidth to operate the camera and pretty much nothing else. So he had to choose between having a camera and no internet for his family. And, of course, which way he went. The third location, we just could not get around the trees that were blocking the two sight lines that we needed. All the other sight lines were free and clear, but the two sight lines we needed to get to the internet, to the tower, were blocked by trees. And we try as we might, we just could not find a way to work around that except to build a tower out in his yard, and we didn't have the money to do that. Well, now we're on our first camera's going up on a tower that is owned by the owner of the ISP in the area. And so we're going to have a direct Ethernet link with I think whatever's faster than a T2. It's a fiber line, I believe. and then we're going to be shooting that signal from that tower. We're going to be about 80 feet up, and that's in the middle of the valley, and we're going to be shooting across to Crestone, and then talking to a dish on the house of our second location that's in the Baca Grande, and then our third location hopefully is going to be the Great Sand Dunes Oasis, which we've been planning on doing for quite some time, but it's really difficult in the valley because of the distances to have real reliable internet for free. And since we're working with the ISP guy, we're not going to have to spend ungodly amounts of money every month for real fast internet connections. So we're really blessed to be working with one of the local ISPs there. So that's really going to help us out. But boy, I'm really excited about today's show. I mean, I am not a fanboy by any stretch of the imagination. There's very few people that I'm fans of, and Jacques Vallee is definitely one of them. He is by far, I believe, to be the most influential and important theorist, I think, in the field. Besides Ray Stanford, there's no one I respect more, and I'm really just so happy that we're going to have him on and talk about his journals and the new 3-book set that he's got out. So this is really going to be a lot of fun.
We have some very interesting questions from our listeners, focusing less on those 3 books, the Forbidden Science books that are being republished by Anomalous Books, focusing in general on his research. And this is just utterly fascinating, his path to get from there to here, because when I met him, and I don't know if he remembers that, I'm going to ask him. When I met Jacques, it was 1965, and he was a young man, not as young as I.
That's right, when his first book came out, Anatomy of a Phenomenon.
It was a fairly traditional E.T. sort of UFO book.
Yeah, he's come a long way.
In any case, we're going to cover a lot of things. And the last time we had Jacques on the show, we only had an hour with him.
Right.
So now we have him for the full show. Now, he was on one time previous to that with our prior co-host, and that show never aired because the first hour disappeared and he didn't want to do it again due to some kind of system glitch. And I have no idea what the system glitch was.
Oh, but that's weird.
It wasn't rude. It would have been rude to have asked him or expected him.
No, it's weird that it disappeared.
Yeah. I never had that happen before or since. Never had to ask.
The old tricksters lurking around.
Oh, yes.
I better not say that.
That trickster. I want to say that with an accent.
Yeah, roll your R's.
Roll, yes. Okay. All right. Let's see, what's the secret question? All right, I'm trying to set up something for the same time as I'm talking to you. Anyway, I want to remind listeners that we've had some really, really excellent episodes of After the Paracast. Every episode, something different, something fascinating. The only way to hear it is to become a member of Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com. So for a low subscription rate, you get the After the Paracast podcast. You get this show, almost commercial-free, no network ads. And just as important, neighbors, we give you better quality audio with this special version of the show. And you get some other stuff too. You know, like we had some of the Other Side of Truth material from Paul Kimball. He will get us some outtakes and special segments of his new Haunted TV show. And we're going to have him and his co-host back to explain why he got involved in the reality show game again. Coming up, Jacques Vallee with Gene and Chris. You're in
The Paracast.
We also have swag. You know, we have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got like, I guess, 60 or so different items, and entails t-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo Tote Bag, all sorts of T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great T-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. If you go to store.theparacast.com, stop by and take a shopping tour.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and like all of you out there, I had problems sleeping. Pillows would go flat, I would flip-flop all night long, I would wake up with a sore neck, maybe a headache, or feel like I needed a nap even though I slept 8 hours. When I invented MyPillow, I wanted it to where you can move the patented fill to give you the exact support you need as an individual, regardless of sleep position. MyPillow will get you into that deep REM sleep faster, and you will stay there longer. It's not about how much time we spend in bed, it's about how much of that quality sleep we get. I do all of my own manufacturing right here in the United States. I have a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry my pillow, and I give you a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. And here's my best offer ever. You can buy one of my pillows and get one absolutely free.
Go to mypillow.com or call 800-870-0305 and use promo code GCN. That's mypillow.com or 800-870-0305 with promo code GCN.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest priced filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to goberkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. goberkey.com.
Do you trust our economy? How about our banking system? Our president has stated we are sitting on a bubble right now, and that when the Fed raises interest rates, bad things are going to happen. Well, the Fed is raising rates here and now. There has never been a better time to turn your IRA or 401k into physical gold or silver with GSI Exchange. Call 833-GSI-GOLD. GSI Exchange can make this happen fast, and it's money you control, not the big banks. 833-GSI-GOLD. Ask about our bank failure survival guide and learn how your qualified IRA transfer can get you $1,500 in free physical gold or silver delivered right to your home. GSI Exchange has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Call GSI Exchange at 833-GSI-GOLD. That's 833-474-4653. Or visit us on the web at gsi.gold.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Slingbow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug-out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of Slingbow, a new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So before we got connected with Jacques Vallee, I tested several ways of talking with him. So we tried Skype through his mobile phone, and the reception was spotty. But he has a great landline, and it works fine. So you're a tech guy. Why do we run into stuff like this, Jacques?
It's a great question. I have two landlines because I often do conferences with companies, and, it always works. The Skype is a great idea, and it almost works. It almost worked a couple of times, and now it's kind of going downhill, actually. They are overloading it with lots of, quote, features that people enjoy, and they are fun, but it makes the whole thing less reliable. And, sometimes you don't care. I mean, if you're, calling family members and so on, and you don't just want to chat, it's okay if the quality isn't that great. My other problem with Skype is that it's not secure. It has bugs, and people can hack into your profile and heaven knows what else. Another thing I don't like is, again, a new feature that pops up in a number of those online systems. It wants to grab all your pictures, all your images, all your photographs from your files to put them in a cloud, because they can resell that to advertisers. And at least Skype asks your permission to do that, so you have a chance to say no. There are others that just don't bother to ask. I think there will be something of a backlash to that kind of thing. Privacy is being ignored by all those companies, and I think that's wrong. Speaking as an old-timer of the internet, as you know.
Yeah, that's a real problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem until somebody figures out a way to come up with an encryption protocols that will enable people to keep sensitive information that they have in their computers out of the hands of people who would like to exploit them. That's one of the reasons why I really prefer Mac to PCs, because you tend to have less problems, although it's not foolproof. But I've never had a virus, for instance, that I know of. And I feel it's a lot more stable and a lot more secure.
Well, the reason there are fewer viruses on Mac is that the market is not as big. The corporate market is mostly PCs, and that's what the hackers want to go after. Yeah. So if they code, a virus, they'll code it first for the PC market.
Yeah.
So it's not that there is something magical inside the Mac.
Well, it's just not. Yeah, there's not as many of them, so they don't bother making the viruses because they're not going to cover as many platforms.
Right.
Yeah. Well, again, it's good to have you back on the show. Congratulations on the 3-book series with Anomalous now with Patrick Weege, and a great organization over there. One of my favorite publishers in this particular realm, and they always do a real good job. Of course, we have Greg Bishop did his Project Beta book there. There's been a number of very good titles that they've come out with over the years, and definitely it's a book series that I'm looking forward to acquiring myself. I often tell people that I'm not much of a fanboy, but when it comes to your work, I am your biggest fan. And if you had a fan club, I probably would elect myself president. Don't want to make you feel old, but one of my first UFO books I ever read was back when I was 9 or 10 years old, and it was the book that you did with your wife, Anatomy of a Phenomenon. And ever since then, I devoured everything that you've put out in. Passport to Magonia, Messengers of Deception, Dimensions, Revelations. These are my very, very favorite books I've ever read about these subjects, and it's really good to see you out and about again. It was an incredible pleasure and an honor to meet you a couple years ago, a year and a half ago at the UFO Congress, and I'm really glad to see that you've decided to kind of poke your head up a little bit here, and anything that we can do here at the Paracast to help out, believe me, you don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you. Forbidden Science is a diary, and it's a little bit harder for people to get into reading a diary, because you have to read it in a certain way. It's archival work. It's not a single topic, wow kind of book that takes you from page 1 to page 200 or whatever. And this is, I started that because there were just so many things happening, and I wanted to keep a record. And I thought that record would be important for people who came, after me into the field, so that they could, because the story gets rewritten by whoever is prominent at the time. So the skeptics are rewriting history. The people interested in abductions are rewriting the history. But the phenomenon is a totality. It's a whole. And we have to learn from our mistakes. And also there are things in the past that are still true. Surprise, surprise. We were just talking about, Skype. Well, Skype works on a packet switching network. And packet switching was invented in 1965. And everybody has forgotten that because, new firms like Google and Facebook and so on are doing their own marketing as if they had invented all that stuff. But underneath, you still have the old reality. It's the same thing for UFOs. I didn't have the intention of publishing it, and I eventually published a hardcover edition that was kind of confidential. And surprisingly, it sold pretty well because there were researchers who wanted to have that record, if only so they could add to it or manage it according to their own reminiscences and researches. But then, about 6 months ago, I was in Latin America, and I discovered that people had those books on their cell phones because people have been scanning them and putting them on the internet. So I thought I might as well do an edited version and publish it myself at a lower price. So that's what Anomalist has done, and there is an ebook version that's coming out as well.
Oh, very good.
Those cover essentially 3 decades, and Volume 3, which is a newer one, covers starting in 1980. So it covers a lot of really important stuff, including a transition of generations, when Dr. Hynek died, of course, and a number of the old research organizations changed leadership or disappeared. A lot of data started to come out also in the 80s. And of course, that's the time when people became really interested in abductions and all kinds of new things in the field.
We'll continue with Jacques Vallee in our next segment with Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Anytime, any place, anywhere. Radio remains the most intimate of all forms of media. At home, at work, in the car, on smartphones. Over 90% of consumers still listen to radio every week. That makes choosing radio as a place to advertise your business one of the best decisions you can make. Email advertise@gcnlive.com and partner up with an experienced GCN representative. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
Did you know children are 52 times more likely to suffer from identity theft than adults? Credit alerts will not fix the fallout. Liberty ID does, and here's an exciting offer just for you. Go to libertyid.com and cover your entire family, your spouse, your children, and your parents for only $129 a year. Use promo code FREE TRIAL and we'll give you the first 60 days free. That's libertyid.com, promo code FREE TRIAL. libertyid.com. libertyid.com.
How did you become addicted? A friend? Were you at a party and someone said, "Hey, try this"? Then you got the cold sweats and started shaking. And the more you did it, the more it didn't work. So you switched to the needle. Now you're a train wreck. Drinking, drugging, broke. Your family hates you, and you hate you. Get out of your hell on earth now. Call the Detox and Treatment Helpline today for immediate help. In many cases, your insurance may cover the costs. We can't guarantee it, but we can guarantee we have what you need to change your life for the better. Pick up your cell phone and call right now. 855-700-2979. 855-700-2979. 855-700-2979. That's 855-700-2979.
We all know that Berkey water purification systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey water filtration systems. The Berkey Light systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light system today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at goberkey.com. That's goberkey.com today.
Back pain doesn't take vacations. It never celebrates holidays. It's on the job 24/7 to keep your life exactly where it is, in limbo. But it doesn't have to be that way, because Laser Spine Institute can help you take back your life from chronic neck and back pain. With a less than 1-inch incision, our minimally invasive procedures have provided relief to over 60,000 patients with a 97% patient satisfaction rate. So get ready to stand tall and live the life you've imagined for yourself without pain. Are you or a loved one suffering from a bulging disc, herniated disc, spinal stenosis, pinched nerve, or degenerative disc disease? Call our spine care consultants now at
855-510-BACK.
For a no-cost MRI review and to learn more. It's time to say goodbye to chronic neck and back pain.
Call 855-510-BACK to see if laser spine surgery is right for you. That's 855-510-BACK.
What have you got to lose? Laser Spine Institute, the leader in minimally invasive spine surgery.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
So Jacques Vallee has been at this game for many, many years. I don't think, Jacques, that you even remember. But I was a kid, such as kids are. I was 20. And I met up with a few friends of mine in Chicago with Jim Moseley, and we visited you at a hotel. Do you remember?
Yes, I do remember, and I think I made a note somewhere in my diaries, because what surprised me was that Jim Moseley, was Jim Moseley. So he had a tape recorder that was hidden somewhere, and we noticed the tape recorder. So after that, the conversation became a little bit more careful. He was a little bit sneaky, which was one of his amusing features.
It surprises me because I don't remember Jim having a tape recorder. It may have been somebody else's, because Jim never had a tape recorder. But I know that we did have a tape recorder because after we visited you, the next day I think we went up to see Ray Palmer.
Yes.
And we had a tape recorder for that, or, obviously a reel-to-reel. And I interviewed him for radio, one of my early radio interviews. So I think any recording would have been one of the other guys, probably Alan Greenfield. I'm going to have to ring him up and see. But I don't think you said anything really bad there. But this was when you were out there promoting your first book, Anatomy of a Phenomenon.
So there was, around that time, there was the Fate magazine organized a commemoration of the Kenneth Arnold sighting, if you remember. And that's when I had the only chance I had of meeting Ray Palmer, which he was quite an interesting man. So was Jim Moseley, by the way. I mean, I always enjoyed his writing because he wasn't taking anybody seriously, but he wasn't taking himself seriously either. And that was very refreshing. And he had this little magazine that came out that was always fun to read.
The thing here, I think that Jim kind of got a bad rap, and it's his own fault. Okay, we do things that sometimes aren't really good ideas, but Jim did something that really got him a bad rap, and that is all the stuff, all the crazy things he pulled with Gray Barker, all his little shenanigans. And as a result, even though he had a really serious interest in the subject, and we talked for hours on what he felt, because of that factor, it made it really difficult for a lot of people to take him seriously. Of course, in the latter years of his life, he had this publication called Saucer Smear, where it was almost like a gossip sheet, except there was always something serious underlying. And I think the face he put to the public at that stage of his life, he didn't want to say, at the heart of this is just a cover for the fact that I'm still really, really deep into exploring the subject and seeing what's going on. What do you think?
He never pretended to be a researcher with a capital R or to be scientific in what he was doing. He was a little bit of a gadfly, and observing the scene from his point of view. You had to take what he wrote with a sense of humor, and but it was very often he was very well informed, and there was that gossip sometimes was significant because he had his own view, his own independent view on things. He didn't try to align himself with a party line, as so many of the UFO groups of the era were trying to do. And so you had to take it with that perspective.
You mentioned Ray Palmer, and you met him. Now, Ray is someone else who I think was very influential in the early days of UFO research, I guess very much in part because of the fact that he co-founded Fate magazine, and that was just really important because he's one of the most popular sources of regular information on the subject. What was your take on him? Because there's an assessment there that he was also a bit of an operator, and he would write things to get readers to talk about it, less so than to express deep-seated viewpoints. What do you think?
My interest in meeting him was that getting first-hand information about the Kenneth Arnold case and how, the very early days of the controversy in the U.S. And, I came to the U.S. in 1962, and by then there had already been a lot of water under the bridge. Now, my interest goes back to 1954 when there was a giant wave of observations over France and then the rest of Western Europe, Italy, and so on. But I had always seen the early days in America, from a distance, through the literature, through magazines and newspapers and so on, and very little television. I mean, we didn't have TV in my house at the time. So most of it came from echoes of what was in the American press. And so I didn't have a chance to research the Kenneth Arnold sighting myself, and I wanted to hear from Ray Palmer what things were like at that time. At that Fate convention, by the way, in Chicago, I also met Kenneth Arnold himself, and he was quite a gentleman. He was much better informed and much more of a technically precise person than people have given him credit for. I mean, yes, he was a pilot, and pilots are trained, and pilots are precise. But he was also, he spent quite a bit of his time looking for people who were lost in the mountains and so on, and up in the state of Washington. And so he was a very dedicated person, and I had a lot of admiration for him. And that put a different color on his sighting that has been interpreted, in many ways, both by believers and by the press, of course, that turned it into flying saucers when actually they were not, the objects he saw were not round. They were more like wedge-shaped, but they skipped in the atmosphere like saucers that you would skip on water. And that's where the expression flying saucers came from, but they were not shaped like saucers. And he was, a very precise man. He was supposed to speak at the same time as me, and he was courteous enough to cancel or to reschedule his presentation in order to attend my presentation. And then we had a long talk after that. Ray Palmer was But by then he was crippled. He was older. This was 20 years later, 20 years after the Kenneth Arnold case. But so he was much more reflective than I had expected. He was, it was sort of in danger of turning into a philosopher, is what I'm trying to say.
Ray Palmer will philosophize that he didn't want to be a philosopher, don't you think?
He didn't. No. I mean, his business was science fiction and good writing, short stories, colorful news. That's what he liked.
This is always the thing that we wonder about with Palmer, and that is his association with Richard Shaver. And I knew Richard Shaver fairly well in the last 5-10 years of his life. Do you think Palmer was just glomming off Shaver? Hey, this is a way I can sell magazines?
Look, it's a great story. I mean, it's a story that will never die. I mean, Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote Pellucidar, and, the idea that the earth is hollow, it makes for a great pulp, Palmer was in that tradition of the great American pulp magazines.
We got more to come. With Jacques Vallee, we're kind of reminiscing about someone we both knew slightly, Ray Palmer, and the early influences. More to come with Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
The answer to being in control of your own healthcare is freedom from insurance. Become part of a group of self-pay patients that come together to share in each other's medical expenses. Individual share amounts begin at $107 a month and $347 for families. Choose from 3 health-sharing programs. Holistic treatments may be eligible for sharing. See guidelines. Discount programs available for dental, vision, and pharmacy. Go to libertyoncall.org. That's libertyoncall.org.
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon you'll need a plan and place to survive. Forget bunkers. You're not a live underground gopher. You need survivalist camps, the ultimate fully functional, off-the-grid mobile survival bug-out house that's well-equipped and custom-built to outlast any other RV or trailer. Bold statement? You bet. See them now at survivalistcamps.com. That's survivalistcamps.com. Trust your family's survival to survivalistcamps.com.
Heart disease is on the rise. Clogged arteries, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol levels may not be fully detected by you, but the symptoms are there. Loss of energy, blood sugar spikes and drops, poor circulation, and irregular heartbeat are just a few of these that can alert you that something is wrong. Hear how Heart and Body Extract is making a difference in thousands of people's lives across America.
My blood pressure has normalized. My diabetes has totally improved.
Everyone is telling me now how much healthier I look, and I'm telling
telling everyone how much healthier I feel. I recommend Heart and Body Extract to everyone.
Anybody over 40 in the North American continent should be using this product as a preventative to keep their cardiovascular system healthy.
Order your 2-month supply today by calling 866-295-5305. That's 866-295-5305. Or order online, hbextract.com. Heart and Body Extract, 866-295-5305 or hbextract.com.
Are you one of the 15 million men who suffer from an enlarged prostate? If your life revolves around finding the closest bathroom, if you're tired of waking up many times a night to urinate, then you need to know about Prostate Miracle. Prostate Miracle contains beta-cytosterol, which is 3,000 times stronger than salt palmetto. To claim your $10 Patriot discount, go to prostatemiracle.com and enter promo code PATRIOT. Or call 877-965-2140. That's 877-965-2140.
Hi, this is nuclear physicist lecturer Stanton Friedman. You are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
As you say, Ray Palmer was involved in the great Pulp magazine tradition as editor of Amazing Stories. And it was interesting when you bring up Edgar Rice Burroughs. Some of the final short stories from Edgar Rice Burroughs were in Amazing Stories because Palmer lured him back into writing, which is very interesting. In fact, he was starting a whole new series with John Carter of Mars where he goes to Jupiter, but he never finished the story.
An inferior literary genre, but I think that's unfair. I mean, if you think the point of writing is first to entertain people and occasionally to bring things to their attention or educate them. The Pulps were remarkable. They certainly are part of the American folklore and loved and admired around the world. There is nothing wrong with a good story, and that's what Ray Palmer didn't set up himself as an arbiter of beauty or accuracy or science. I mean, that wasn't his job. His job was just to publish interesting stories, and he didn't judge them, and that's okay.
He was an entertainer, publisher, raconteur.
Well, it worked.
With Palmer, with Fate magazine especially, he kept the UFO mystery alive. He had Kenneth Arnold write the story there. They had the Coming of the Saucers book. He really gave it a really huge push. And some people even regard Palmer as an early father of the UFO mystery. Do you think that's maybe pushing it a little bit too far?
No, I think there are a number of cases and a number of important ideas that we would not know about if it hadn't been in Fate magazine. And
right, and he gave Kenneth Arnold a platform, and that pivotal event, as we look at it now, may not have been as pivotal if Ray Palmer hadn't been involved and actually hired Arnold to do writing for him.
But he was. Yes, I mean, he was publishing them because they were good stories, and he had the kind of genius of recognizing the value of a good story when other people didn't. And because of the format, nobody could censor him. I mean, he wasn't trying to impress scientists or to impress anybody. He just wanted to sell his magazine with good stories in it. And but remember, his public was fairly sophisticated. I mean, those were the people who would read science fiction, the early science fiction novels and short stories, the great American science fiction, which I had, the opportunity to, when I was in France, one of my I wrote a science fiction novel. It was picked up, it was published by a big French publisher. And my publisher, a man named Jacques Vallee, had been an interpreter He spoke English very well, had been in the U.S. before the war. And during World War II, he was an interpreter with the American Army. And he noticed that all the GIs were carrying pulp magazines, and they were, leaning against a tank or a jeep when there was a lull in the fighting, and they would read that stuff. And he was fascinated with it. I mean, there was nothing like it in Europe. And I think people don't realize, in the U.S., even now, don't realize the impact that kind of simple story had overseas. And of course, Gallet then started a collection in France, translating the great American science fiction of the 40s and 50s and 60s, and also publishing French science fiction like my early novel. And that was my introduction to those magazines before I came to the U.S. And this was good stuff. And the people who write Fate, certainly in those years, were fairly sophisticated in terms of being able to tell a good story and seeing what was true and what wasn't true, like you say the Shaver mystery. This was fun, and it was brilliant.
And I think it's important for our younger listeners out there to take note that when you look at a subject like the unidentified flying object mystery and other so-called paranormal subjects, I think it's important to go back to the beginning of how these memes were created, who propagated them, how they spread through the culture, how they've kind of grown to have a life of their own, how they spun off other memes into the culture, and oftentimes some of the best clues that we have to look at a particular subject are contained at the very beginning when that particular subject or meme begins to spread. And I think it's very important to look at things like Ray Palmer and Amazing Stories, Fate magazine, and how they subtly have had tremendous influence, sort of a kind of a quantum physical, butterfly, flapping its wings, creating a train wreck in Paris. We've had an amazing. Some of these memes have grown into incredible, fantastical scenarios that today people are taking as being true. I could really start in on the Corey Goods and the Andrew Bassagios and the Laura Eisenhowers and some of these fantastic stories that to me obviously are, at the best delusional, at the worst disinformation, and but millions of people are buying into this stuff. And to have Dr. Vallee on the program and to be talking about how these memes originally got their foothold in the culture, this is important stuff. And I think the younger generation who's up and coming into this field needs to go back and become, have a working knowledge of how these things have unfolded over the last 70 years. This is really, really important stuff. So take notes, everybody. I'm off my soapbox.
Well, some of those short stories were later picked up by Hollywood and turned into major movies. So, and they certainly set up sort of a landscape that was amenable to being turned into movies. And a certain mood and a certain freedom of the imagination, which maybe we've lost a little bit. And I don't read Edgar Rice Burroughs anymore, but I've moved on. But at one time in my life, I really enjoyed that whole series about the Mars series and the Moon series and so on. And those were fun. And
yeah, but we knew they were fiction. Today, people are taking similar stories and claims to be real and to be scientifically, no matter how ridiculous some of these claims might be, there's millions of people that are buying into it and accepting it as reality. So we've taken the the wonderful innocence of the early part of the era of the modern era of flying saucers and etc. And now the fantasy portion of it has now kind of blurred the lines and now is being accepted as real. I see that as a major problem. How about you? I mean, people are not differentiating between what is plausible and possibly real to what is absolutely implausible, and it just doesn't have really much chance of being real. What do you think?
I think about that pretty often because the internet, of course, has had a major effect on this. When stories appear on the internet, they can be marketed in such a way that they look like, and of course that's true in politics as well. But people can insert memes, new memes or old memes, to market something, including, of course, political ideas, but including rewriting history. And, we see that all the time. And also, I think that to some extent, there are places in the government that have been using that to misdirect. It's not necessarily, disinformation in the usual, sense, but it comes pretty close to it.
Let's do our break here, Jacques. Jacques, let's do our break here. And I want to get into that. We got more to come with Jacques Vallee and Jean and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
North Korea openly threatens the U.S. and launches a new missile every other week. Their warhead of choice? Electromagnetic pulse. Such an event would cripple the U.S. power grid for years and leave millions in the dark. Are you ready? You can be with a Solarc EMP-hardened solar generator. Solarc works day in and day out to keep your essentials protected. You can have peace of mind knowing your power will be there when you most need it. Visit PortableSolarLLC.com to see EMP testing. That's PortableSolarLLC.com. Energy insurance for your family.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. I'm here to tell you about GCNtelecare.com, a team of board-certified doctors assisting you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Within 15 minutes of registration, care your family can afford. Revolutionizing the healthcare industry, virtual consulting providing diagnosis of non-emergency medical issues by phone or secure video on computer or smart mobile devices. GCNtelecare.com, virtual care anywhere.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Exploring a lot of things here, and when some of our listeners start saying the Paracast shouldn't be doing pop culture, well, think of the important impact that pop culture has in our society. So, Jacques Vallee, you were talking there about the government, not disinformation so much as what? Taking advantage of the situation?
Taking advantage of belief systems to promote, either to hide something or to promote something. Look at the books that have come out recently about in parapsychology. The about psychical research, the books about Area 51, which keep coming out, the books about Project Blue Book, that are sort of skirting the truth in funny ways. And, we're talking about forbidden science, about my record of, the 80s, the 1980s and what happened there. The 1980s were a major turning point in the history of scientific research on what people call generally the paranormal, and especially, things like remote viewing, parapsychology, and so on. That was a turning point because there had been research funded by the government at places like SRI, where I worked for a while, officially sponsored and paid for by the government. And this was really good research. And the truth about it has become somewhat blurred by, all the different interpretations and so on. So, and the same is true, by the way, about the internet, with no evil intention from anybody, but people are constantly forgetting where the internet came from. One time I had a historian came to see me because he wanted to interview me about the history of the internet. And I said, well, they are, why don't you go to the people at DARPA, in Washington?
Yeah, really?
He said, well, I've been there, but it's not the same people. And they gave me their recollection of it. But what's different about you is that you wrote about it at the time. And that's a whole difference from looking back 20 years later and writing a story about Area 51 or a story about Alan Hynek or a story about Blue Book or Socorro, or some of those things. And it's different when you write it day by day. And, of course, when you write day by day, and one of the criticisms of my diary is that, of course, there are things that are wrong. There are things that are wrong because I see it on Friday, I learn about it from a friend, or I'm in a conversation and I discover something, and then by Monday or Tuesday, I've learned something else. So you can see errors being made and being corrected, and how the truth emerges after days or months or years sometimes.
Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I mean, that's the real thing, and this is not something you can edit. So much to my chagrin, I cannot go back and rewrite. I was dumb, and I believed what this guy was saying, but the following day I checked up on it, and I found out that it was different. The same thing with investigating cases. I still spend quite a bit of my time quietly, investigating cases that interest me. Those are not necessarily the cases. In fact, most of the time, it's not the cases that are on TV or in the UFO magazines.
Except for the Sherman Ranch. The Sherman Ranch would be an exception.
Yes. Well, it was an exception because I was part of the science board for Mr. Bigelow, so I followed that story for many years. Yes.
Yeah. As have I, having been the first one that went up there really, and who had any sort of experience investigating claims of this sort. I was up there before. In fact, I gave him Bigelow's phone number. I also gave him Lawrence Rockefeller's phone number. Of course, Robert called him and had him contacted as soon as the Zach Van Eck article came out, which first publicly exposed the claims of Terry Sherman and this so-called Skinwalker Ranch case. For those of you out there that don't know who Terry Sherman was, we're talking about the Sherman Ranch case, or the Skinwalker Ranch case. It's interesting that you have continued on because I feel sort of, I feel like I've been following your model. I've been continuing on investigating as well, but not publicizing, the places where I go and the people that I talk to. At some point you really have to draw the line about when it's expedient to keep keep everything on the low key so that you can get more done without obstacles. Publicity and attention tend to throw up obstacles, and and it tends to water down your efforts. You don't have as pure an investigative environment if you have people looking over your shoulders. So I can really appreciate that, and I can't wait to dive into the last volume of Forbidden Science, because I really am not familiar with some of the stuff that you've done recently. Are you planning on including this information into an additional volume? I know that you've been, that you've kind of delineated out time periods, but has any of this, let's say in the last 10 years, the cases that you've been involved with, have they been publicized in any way? And
No.
if not, do you plan on publicizing them?
Well, some of them, when they are relevant, yes, I publish them, or I help. One of the things I'm in a position to do today is to help new people who come into the field and are doing good research, first in giving them, the benefit of a historical perspective. I'm not the only one. But I can point them to other people who, like me, have followed the field for a long time, so that they don't fall into the pitfall of believing the current story that's on the internet and so on. They can tell, they can have firsthand accounts of what really happened, and then they can go on from there. So sometimes I can open some doors for them because I know where the bodies are buried. So, and I'll stay in the background, but I can help them. There is, by the way, an example of that in a book that I highly recommend. It was just published by Anomalist. It's a book by David Booher called No Return. And David is an excellent researcher, spent 3 or 4 years researching the book.
We just had him on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Well, this is a case that had always fascinated me, that I was hoping to be able to return to it someday. And then David contacted me because he was doing that. And I was able to, help him in a couple of things. That's the other, privilege I have is that I have wonderful readers who write to me. They don't want any publicity, but they will tell me about things that happened in their house or on their property, and give me access to that, access to the witnesses and access to the property. And so that is, and of course I will follow. If they don't want any publicity, there won't be any publicity.
Right.
I also have good contacts in Silicon Valley, and you would be surprised at the level of interest that exists in Silicon Valley among the newer companies in this field. And again, Silicon Valley can keep its secrets very, very well. But these are sophisticated people and with high technology. And that is really a privilege, because I can do some analyses, I can do some computation, I can do some things, with fairly casual access to the best tools. So the things that I'm doing now.
We're going to break now. We got more to come with Jacques Vallee and Jean and Chris. What a fascinating session. You're in
the Paracast.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors, classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Does the current world crisis in North Korea or our domestic crisis right here in America concern you? Well, I know it concerns me. My friends over at Legacy Food Storage have solutions in the event there's the inevitable. What's the inevitable? Civil unrest, a run on your local grocery store. And here's my question to you. If this happens, how do you feed your children? How do you feed your grandchildren? Legacy Food Storage has the solutions. In fact, they can help you implement a simple plan to take care of your needs in the event of the inevitable. By calling them right now, I have authorized them to give you a special 20% discount at checkout by simply using GCN. Call 888-543-7345 or visit them at legacyfoodstorage.com. That's 888-543-7345 or visiting them at legacyfoodstorage.com. Make sure you use GCN at checkout for an incredible 20% discount. Don't be a victim. Take control of your life now.
You want to save money in a place that gives you growth, control, and certainty without stock market risk or tax risk, and you want guarantees and you want it all tax-free. That's a tall order. But you can get all of that with properly designed participating whole life insurance. Most people think life insurance pays after you're dead. That's true. But you can have tax-free access to use your life insurance while you're alive. Get the free book to find out how. Call 702-660-7000.
Investing is a long-term process. How many times can you think of in the last decade that the stock market has destroyed retirement funds for people just like you and me? For your existing IRA, you need the security that gold has provided for centuries. Remember, gold has never been worth zero. Capital Gold would like to introduce you to the Home Storage Gold IRA. It's a self-directed IRA set up with all the protection and tax benefits of an LLC. But the big difference in this IRA is you invest in gold and you hold it in your possession. You can't do that with stocks. That's security. You can transfer any type of IRA hassle-free in days. Please call right now and learn more, and we'll waive the $500 setup fee and give you a free safe to store your gold. 800-535-7789. 800-535-7789. 800-535-7789. That's 800-535-7789.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Hi, this is Joshua P. Warren, author of The Poor Man's Paranormal, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
We're back. We're here with Dr. Jacques Vallee. And Jacques, you were talking about being contacted by folks with interesting cases and how you've provided kind of a platform for their cases, their views, to look into them, to guide them, to give them the benefit of your long involvement in the field. And I must say, I've always wanted to get into more of a dialogue with you and talk to you. I remember for years I sent you my Mysterious Valley report, which you may or may not remember. I remember you were on my mailing list, and I sent them out for many years. And I actually sent that out free to any investigator that contacted me and wanted to know what was going on there. And of course, I just felt that it was more of a service to the research community. But I've been involved in a project of attempting to get a triangulated array of high definition cameras in the San Luis Valley. It's been almost a 10-year process. It's been very difficult to get people to work for nothing and to spec their time and stuff. But what you just said about Silicon Valley being interested and of course when you say Silicon Valley, obviously you're talking about cutting edge technology. It'd be very, very interesting to see if anyone there would be interested in getting involved in monitoring a bona fide hotspot area. I think your efforts that you spelled out back in 78 and 79, I think you attempted to do the same thing up at the Happy Valley, California site. But at the time, I mean, we just didn't have the sophisticated levels of technology. And of course, the cost was just prohibited back then. What do you think about hard data monitoring of hotspot areas? For instance, the UFO-TOG program, I think Douglas Trumbull and Mark D'Antonio have been involved with, and my San Luis Valley camera project has Dellen, of course, being the litmus test for all this. What do you think of that approach of really attempting to get hard data, and monitor with magnetometers, gravitometers, maybe active radar, that sort of thing, of course, optical information. What do you think of that approach? Do you think that we're at a place where that, with the level of technology and the affordability, will allow us to gain some scientific insights?
As you just said, it's difficult to do. Just designing and implementing an optical camera and then getting it to that place up in Northern California, all the way up in the mountains. It was a fascinating project. And, I was doing that with my son, and it was an opportunity for us to drive up there into the countryside and work on this and work with the local witnesses at that particular site, which was a site of repeated landings. But we had to, of course, camouflage the camera, because otherwise somebody could sit there on a picnic and notice the camera and take it away or something. Also, you have to protect it from insect, because you don't want the spider to put a web in front of the lens. We could only get there, once a month or so. So it had to be able to take pictures for a month on a regular schedule. All that it wasn't high tech, but it was a little bit complicated in terms of logistics, because it was a 6-hour drive from San Francisco and 6 hours to get back. So, it's difficult as I think that, what you've been doing is very important, because we need to monitor several sites, if only for comparison with the Skinwalker Ranch, in terms of, what can you learn from a site like this? How often are you going to get information? How do you record information? Is it the same phenomenon everywhere? Or does every geographic area may have a slightly different phenomenon? It's difficult to do, even to monitor one room. I mean, I know of a case where things are appearing in somebody's bedroom. A number of technical people have been involved in monitoring. Of course, it has to be unobtrusive. You don't want to overload the room with computers and big cameras. You have to do it in normal light or normal darkness if it's happening at night. So even in one room, it's difficult. And when you're trying to monitor an entire valley or an entire ranch, it's hard to do. One of the things I can talk about is when Mr. Bigelow acquired the ranch, we had a subcommittee of the science board looking at what instrumentation, exactly your question, what instrumentation we should put there, knowing that we didn't want to go overboard. We wanted people to be able to still do their normal work without being, bothered by the technology getting in the way. One of the things I insisted on was, if we're going to have a ring of cameras, we should have another ring of cameras watching the first cameras, because the phenomenon can tamper with a camera. And in fact, that did happen.
I wanted to interrupt because that just hit me right there. Because I think they have that issue sometimes reported with UFO abductions, where they want to set up a camera to catch it in action and something weird happens. So in the case you're talking about, the tampering, what actually seems to happen?
You cannot take the, quote, scientific rational approach to this. The scientific rational approach is you monitor a phenomenon like, I don't know, clouds in the sky. You're going to set up a couple of special cameras and you're going to record what happens and then you're going to process it in some way. But the clouds are not going to lie to you. Here we have a phenomenon that we don't understand what it is physically. We think we do. I mean, it has lights and it has, when it lands, it does something to the ground. And okay, so we can assume that will continue, although that's not a given. For example, you want to monitor something that has a light, but lots of UFOs are dark. So you may not catch them with the same technology. You expect them to move slowly, but some of them can disappear in the blink of an eye. So where did they go? And your camera didn't catch that. By the way, people in the space program have the same problem. I mean, for a long time, they didn't know about the Van Allen belts because their sensors stopped where they assumed that the field would be maximum. And the field was much, much, much higher in those areas. They just saturated their sensors. So they had to redo the thing and understand why it was saturated. That's how you make discoveries. And that's how they discovered the Van Allen belts. The same thing here. It's on top of that, we have to assume that the phenomenon is intelligent. And if the phenomenon is intelligent, it's going to detect our cameras. And we know this is a phenomenon that loves to play with gadgets. It plays with airplanes. It plays with rockets. All the cases from the Air Force or from other places where they launch a rocket and something arrives from the end of the horizon and it spirals around the rocket as the rocket goes up. That has been recorded going back to the 50s. So it's a phenomenon that loves to play with your gadgets.
Let's do our break here, guys. Let's do our break. More to come with Jacques Vallee. And Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
North Korea openly threatens the U.S. and launches a new missile every other week. Their warhead of choice? Electromagnetic pulse. Such an event would cripple the U.S. power grid for years and leave millions in the dark. Are you ready? You can be with a Solarc EMP-hardened solar generator. Solarc works day in and day out to keep your essentials protected. You can have peace of mind knowing your power will be there when you most need it. Visit PortableSolarLLC.com to see EMP testing. That's PortableSolarLLC.com. Energy insurance for your family.
It's a no-brainer. A Big Berkey water filter is the one you need, period. You need a water filter that removes chlorine, fluoride, pharmaceuticals, BPA, and other endocrine disruptors, pesticides, bacteria, viruses, and much more, right? And does it all at only 2 cents per gallon. Get the original, most trusted name in gravity water filtration, Big Berkey. And now GCN listeners receive 5% off ceramic filter systems using code GCN. Call or click 1-877-99-BERKEY or BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY.
It's been said, any society is only 3 missed meals away from chaos. Those times may be near. Think about it. Our country faces multiple terrorist threats and aggressions from Russia and North Korea. Social unrest and violent marches yet again may lead to looting of stores and city shutdowns. And our crumbling infrastructure leaves our power grid vulnerable to long-term outages from a single cyber attack. When the chaos from any one of these threats arises, the government knows it can't provide during a widespread national emergency. That's why you need your own plan for self-reliance. That's where My Patriot Supply comes in. Get a 4-week survival food supply for only $99. That includes breakfast, lunches, and dinners. Order online at preparewithgcn.com. $99 for 4 weeks of survival food that tastes like homemade cooking and lasts up to 25 years from My Patriot Supply. Get your kits today at preparewithgcn.com. Free shipping is included. Preparewithgcn.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-7740. That's 800-610-7740. 800-610-7740.
Kiyosaki, Rogers, and Schiff all concur there's an economic calamity that'll be facing this country. My question to you is, do you know when, and are you prepared? Most people don't, but my friends over at Republic Monetary Exchange have been leading experts in precious metals to help you offset the coming economic collapse. Right now, for a limited time, they have a free book called The 10 Reasons You Should Own Gold. You simply need to give them a call at 888-772-2929 to get that in your hands. Do not allow the insiders to do what they did to you in 2008, putting your IRAs, 401ks, and savings in jeopardy. You need this book, and you need it now. The 10 Reasons You Should Own Gold. Call 888-772-2929. That's 888-772-2929. There's a reason that the largest investment banking company in the world, JP Morgan, just purchased another 50 million ounces of silver. This free book will explain it. 888-772-2929.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Let me remind you, neighbors, that we have another radio show called After the Paracast, where we'll have a lot to say about Jacques, but not behind his back. It's, just an appreciation of all the things we're learning right now. And the only way you can hear that show if you become a member of the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com. We also give you a version of this show free of the network ads. Was that enough? There's more to come on the Paracast Plus, plus.theparacast.com. Jacques Vallee is here reminiscing about a lot of subjects, focusing on a lot of subjects, but very much in part because our friends at Anomalous Books have reprinted the 3 volumes of his Forbidden Science journals. And that's something you really want to check out.
Again, I'm kind of fishing here for a way to move forward in investigating particular hotspot areas, if you will, window areas, and whether there's ever going to be an efficient way to gather hard data. You were starting to talk about the Sherman Ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch case, where one of the cameras was rendered inoperable. Literally, wires jerked out of the thing. If I remember correctly, we had John Alexander on the show, and he gave us a very colorful blow-by-blow explanation of what happened. As you mentioned, Jacques, not only did you have a ring of cameras, you had another set of cameras watching the other cameras. And on cue, this thing evidently tore out the wires on the camera, and the camera looking at the camera that had been impacted by whatever it was really didn't show anything going up there and actually rendering that initial camera inoperative. What do you make of that? I wrote a book on the trickster, and I've been wrapping my head around this whole idea of absurdity and inexplicability and tricksterism as an integral part of many of these phenomenal events across the spectrum. What do you make of that?
I've seen that tape. I was congratulating myself for telling those guys they should have a second ring of camera, because otherwise, we would have assumed that that particular camera had just cut off. or that somebody had done something and we didn't know who it was. The fact that we could see that we were looking at that camera all the time and that there was nobody there cutting the wire, puts it in a completely different category. I don't want to say anything discouraging, but for, people don't realize that, but for about 6 years on the Sherman Ranch, nothing happened. Even though there were scientists there, there were, the ranchers were there, and their family. Essentially, there were the cameras, there was sensors, and nothing happened. So unless you have the kind of resources that Mr. Bigelow can deploy, you have to be prepared for a lot of work that's really unrewarded. And then from time to time, something would happen. We had cattle mutilations. We had things that, animals that disappeared and reappeared. We had very strange behavior by animals. We had orbs, but there was no flying saucer, and we started out thinking we were going to get footage or certainly information about craft. And there were craft with our neighbors, to the left and to the right, but not on the ranch. There were indications of strange things that were at the limit of what we were recording. And actually, I've gone back thanks to a gentleman named Frank Salisbury, who was a long-term friend of mine, was a professor of plant pathology at the University of Utah and then at Utah State.
We had him on the show. The Great Utah UFO Display, one of my favorite books.
Yes. Well, he wanted to redo that book, so, 40 years later. And so he offered me to join him. And we went back, relocated most of the witnesses in his first book. Frank passed away, by the way, a little over a year ago, which is a pity. He was really a great scientist, a great gentleman, and had access to both the Mormon community there and the Indian community, and knew Utah very well. And never mind the Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, all of northern Utah is a high paranormal area. And
the Uinta Basin especially.
Yes. Well,
and he was pretty dismissive of the Sherman Ranch case. He wasn't really that impressed with it. I remember when he re-released the book, the Great Utah UFO Display, he had an addendum chapter in there, if I recall, and he didn't seem very impressed with the Sherman Ranch case. Privately, what did he tell you? What were his feelings about the claims of the Shermans and the effort that Bigelow, and Combe Kelleher and John and yourself and the other folks that were involved peripherally, what did he tell you privately?
Well, at that point, he certainly knew a lot more about Utah than I did, but I knew a lot more about the ranch than he did. He never set foot on the ranch, and I didn't at that point. The ranch was going through transformations and so on. I wasn't involved day to day. And I did not want to go there without Mr. Bigelow's knowing that we were doing this. And but what I told Frank was that what was going on through Dr. Keller's book is really excellent, and it sets up most of the information about the ranch. But you can find cases, all over. As you said, all over the basin. So we took 2 trips, Dr. Salisbury and I, of about 10 days each, around, going from Vernal to Fort Duchesne, if you see where that is, around Roosevelt. And then the second trip, we started through the Uinta mountain chain, starting from Utah, and from Salt Lake City, and going over the north, going even a little bit into Wyoming, and then coming back through the mountains, which he loved, by the way. As a young man, he had climbed all over those mountains and so on, had wonderful reminiscences of the landscape and the people and so on, and then driving back towards Roosevelt again. And that whole area is full of cases of UFOs, again, that we could verify and augment what he had done in his first book, but also sightings of creatures, sighting of skinwalkers, orbs, and all kinds of other things. And, strange disappearances, paranormal phenomena, and those were typically not reported because you're dealing with two communities that are very unique
and very closed.
Yeah, keeping information to their own standards and their own traditions.
Yeah.
Let's do our break here, and we got more to come with Gene, Chris, and our special guest Jacques Vallee. And we're just going to get started here. We've got lots of questions from listeners that Chris is going to bring up in a moment, and maybe we'll get a further commitment from Jacques later on this year to come back. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Slingbow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug-out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of slingbow. A new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
You want to save money in a place that gives you growth, control, and certainty without stock market risk or tax risk, and you want guarantees and you want it all tax-free. That's a tall order. But you can get all of that with properly designed participating whole life insurance. Most people think life insurance pays after you're dead. That's true. But you can have tax-free access to use your life insurance while you're alive. Get the free book to find out how. Call 702-660-7000.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest priced filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to GoBerkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com.
If you're a sleep apnea sufferer who's on the go to your phone and call right now to try the world's first portable mini CPAP device, absolutely risk-free for 10 restful nights. It's the Transcend Mini CPAP, an engineering marvel that's as small as a soda can and weighs less than a pound. Its unique design is so small and so light, you can fit it in your briefcase or purse to use anywhere you go. No more dragging around a big, bulky CPAP. Even better, now you can try Transcend absolutely risk-free for 10 restful nights by calling minicpap.com, 1-800-962-4276. Transcend is FAA compliant too, so you can even sleep comfortably while flying. You can also add a battery pack that's as tiny as a deck of cards. So now you can enjoy the freedom to sleep comfortably anywhere. But don't wait. To receive your 10-night in-home trial, call minicpap.com now. 1-800-962-4276. That's 1-800-962-4276.
Looking for that edge during those intimate moments? We see many ads for enhancement, but the side effects include death. At GCN Team, we should change the Healthy Body, Brain, and Heart Pack to the Healthy Libido Pack. The brain and heart are not the only organs that require a healthy vascular system. For proper blood flow at the right moment, go to GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Of course, some people think I should be just committed, and that would be the end of everything right there. That's how we go. Jacques, thank you for being a good sport and putting up with me. And Chris?
No problem. I enjoy it.
We shall continue.
Well, I've done a bit of digging myself, a little bit of research. I did have my investigative blinders on. I had a perfect Petri dish in the San Luis Valley, but the one case that did draw me out of the valley was the Skinwalker Ranch so-called case. And because of I was very, very intrigued by the claims of Terry and the family, I started developing some sources and doing field trips up to the Uinta Basin, the southern part of the Uinta Basin, down to Interstate 70, from Sago Canyon in the west to Baxter Pass in the east. Unfortunately, Frank Salisbury should have taken you down south of the Sherman Ranch into the gas and oil fields area.
We heard of some cases there, and we spoke to the manager of one of those fields, but we didn't go there. You're absolutely right. We should have spent more time down there.
The Uinta Mountains are very, very compelling. The only mountains in the North America that run, I think, east to west or west to east. Yes. All other mountain chains run north to south. I think the Brooks Range in Alaska would be the one kind of exception. But, I'm telling you, I went to some areas in the middle of the Uinta Basin to the southern end of it, just above I-70, along the Green River area, Baxter Pass, as I mentioned, south of Bonanza. There is amazing activity going on down there, and the only people that really see it are the oil and gas workers and the very, very few residents that are down there, and some of the Native American traditions and stories that have developed out of that area are extremely intriguing. But it would take an army to cover that area. It's so large and it's so remote. It's very, very difficult to get to. But that, to me, is one of those undiscovered, unpolished diamonds in potential UFO research, and there are a number of areas like that, obviously, around the country. But that's one of my, if I had unlimited budgets and a lot of people helping, that's where I would be setting up some gear and setting people up to do some observation. As you pointed out, whatever this phenomenon is, or the phenomena are, is very, very intelligent. It can anticipate what we're going to do even before we realize we're going to do it. I will go that extra step. Not only will it anticipate what we're trying to do, it will second guess us before we even get to the point of trying to do it. And once you get to that point of it being able to predict what your inclinations are or what your compulsions are, I mean, it's very, very difficult to try to set up some sort of scientific, set of protocols and gear and efforts to gain hard data and then replicate that data, most importantly. So what we have to do is we have to try to outfox the fox or out-trick the trickster, if you will. How would you suggest that we go about doing that? Do we need to dive into the realm of psychics and channelers and all that, or is there some other way?
You asked a very good question earlier. You know, what can be done when you have an area which is an active, intense area? And I don't mean to evade your question. There are a couple of things that are new and high-tech, but potentially useful. I mean, not all high technology is useful, you know, as we saw with Skype. But in those two cases, there is a little book that's been out for about a year called Camileo. And it's written by a professor of English at the university in Southern California. It's Camileo, Cameleo. And he wrote it as a novel because I don't think he could write it in any other way. But it's about a series of events that happened around San Diego that he was privy to through some of his friends and probably some of his students. They're having to do with people who could make themselves invisible. Now, that is kind of a preposterous claim, but it reminded me of something that happened when I published a book called Revelations many, many years ago. And I had a phone call in the middle of the night from someone who obviously was technically very savvy, said, Dr. Vallee, I cannot tell you who I am or where I work, but some of the things you've been describing in your book look like some of the things we're doing. And I said, so what do you do? And he said, well, we make things disappear. And if I told you that I've been in the middle of maneuvers with large vehicles, like tanks, for example, and that I was 100 feet from the tank and I couldn't see the tank, would you believe me? And how, if you had to do something like this, how would you do it? So I thought, if the skin of the tank is made of optical fibers, maybe I can direct the light around the tank and then I'm not going to see the tank. He said, well, that could be one way to do it, but, that would be pretty complicated, and there are probably other ways of doing it that I can't tell you, but that you should continue to think about, and he hung up. I've never forgotten that conversation because obviously it was somebody who knew what he was working on, and he knew what he was doing, and he stopped just at the point where it might have infringed on, some technology that wasn't available.
I hate to interrupt you, but I was visited by a higher up at Martin Marietta at Buckley Air Force Base who asked me the same question. So I'm wondering if we're talking about the same individual.
We might be. And in Camileo, he actually identifies somebody who fits that description, who might be, because he was not, he was part of the project, but he probably wasn't subject to the same classification as the other people. So he could kind of talk about it. I mean, how many people would there be who would be privy to that and could talk about it? But this was many years ago. It was over 20 years ago, that conversation. Camileo came out a year ago, and he talks about the same thing. So since 2 + 2 is still equal to 4, I thought about the invisible, the cable being cut on that camera on the ranch, and other things that happened on the ranch where they couldn't see anybody. And northern Utah would be an ideal place to test some of those things if you wanted to test them on the normal population as opposed to testing them in a war game.
Well, I wouldn't call it a normal population. That's a small little bubble of white ownership in the midst of a very large Native American reservation. It would be even more ideal.
Yeah, but both the Mormon community and the Indian community have had their own share of observations.
Oh, yeah.
There was one case that Frank and I looked at where a skinwalker, which was essentially a very large dog walking on its hind legs, was walking along the road through a village north of Roosevelt. And, we spoke to the witnesses, and we also spoke to the highway patrol. They had called the highway patrol because they were scared of that thing. It didn't act hostile. It wasn't, chasing chickens or eating their cat, but it was kind of impressive. So they called the highway patrol. The thing ran alongside the patrol car, and they entered a reservation area, so they called the tribal police. Tribal police sent a car, followed the highway patrol, and the guy looked at the thing, got on the radio and said, "It's all yours, guys. Good luck. I'm going home." And he turned around and went home because that meant something
I love it.
different in his tradition. And as you know, if you've spent time there, they related to some of the Navajo traditions. And there is a lot of bad blood that is still there between the Utes, the Urays, and the Navajos.
Right,
that
because
goes
the
back
Utes...
to some parts of history that I certainly didn't learn in school. Okay, and you learn it when you talk to people.
We have more with Jacques Vallee and Jean and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails t-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo tote bag, all sorts of t-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great t-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. If you go to store.theparacast.com, stop by and take a shopping tour.
If you had purchased $100 of Bitcoin in 2010, today you'd have $2,600,000. While that sinks in, you now have a huge cryptocurrency opportunity at below market price at a guaranteed 10 cents per coin. ProCoin, a coin publicly traded on the open market, easily converted to cash, available in 60 countries, and ProCoin is the only cryptocurrency offering coin-back rewards for consumers and merchants. Take action by August 31st at ProCoinCurrency.net. That's ProCoinCurrency.net. Deadline for 10-cent guarantee is August 31st.
Fully cooked, ready-to-eat bacon. I'm talking thick, meaty, center-cut presidential bacon. Savory and delicious. I buy some, I use some, I store some. Awesome. No refrigeration needed with a 10-year shelf life. NASA-packed technology. Bacon. Fully cooked, fully hydrated, ready to eat right from the packed bacon. Or warm and served. Life-saving, ready-to-eat bacon. 10-year shelf life bacon. Ships free at fullycookedbacon.com. Fullycookedbacon.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Final 4 segments of the Paracast. Our special guest, Jacques Vallee. Chris O'Brien had a comment.
Well, we were talking about a upright bipedal kind of wolfman or dogman sighting, and passing off jurisdiction from the highway patrol to the reservation cops or vice versa. But I think it's very interesting.
What I love about this kind of thing is that I keep learning lots of things from really good people. And that's the kind of investigation I like. I don't go into the field with a lot of equipment. I never take a tape recorder. I do take a camera. I have a camera on my phone, so I don't have a choice. But I don't take any special equipment. What I like is to have the trust of the people, and they invite me in, and we sit at the kitchen table. If I'm lucky, I get a cup of coffee, which is not necessarily true in the Mormon community, and we talk. And we talk about their life, and we talk about my life, and we talk about what we're trying to learn. And, it's a mystery. And the Cameleo is about making people stealthy, if not invisible. And I think that has to be something that we have to take into account. The other thing that people can do, that you could do over the San Luis Valley, is, it used to be very difficult to get satellite pictures, not pictures, but images of an area, especially at high resolution. But that's not true anymore, because that's
Google Earth.
Things that we do in Silicon Valley. Well, yeah, Google Earth is sort of static, but you can get daily pictures of your field at a resolution where you'll be able to see your car. So, which is 1 meter resolution. And if you can get 1 meter resolution, you can probably fudge it to get 50 centimeter resolution, which, of course, a few years ago would...
Yeah, classified. Where do I go? Where do I go to do that? Google Earth Pro?
No, not Google. There are a number of new companies that are buying the streams from the satellites. Planet Labs, which is now called just Planet. It's a company in San Francisco. For some reason, all these guys are not in the Mojave Desert where the rockets are. They are all in downtown San Francisco. And they are beginning to make those streams of data available, to farmers, and they also do indices of activity, of industrial activity around the world.
So it's near real time or real time?
Daily.
Okay.
Yeah, daily. So you can specify an area. You can begin to experiment with that. It's not cheap yet, but it's going to get very cheap and very easy to.
Which country owns the satellites, the birds? Russian technology, or?
Airbus has a satellite. Google has a satellite, but Google is more interested in internet. There are a number of new companies with birds, with satellites. There is a company which is a very, very brand new company. It's a startup in San Francisco also, called Space Know. Space K-N-O-W. And what they do is they repackage all those different streams, and they index it by longitude and latitude, and they resell it to you. So you
wow.
can...
this is really good news. Talk about supplemental data. Boy.
Yeah, if you look at www.spaceknow.com, you'll see what they are doing. Their major clients right now are Bloomberg and, people who track financial indices, inventories of oil and that kind of thing.
Right, and commodities, crops, that sort of thing. That could be invaluable.
Absolutely. Yeah, but they will also, you can experiment with them, and they give you a break, in looking at a particular area on a daily basis under the same. So you want it under the same sun angle, so that the shadows, are the same. There will be a number of those companies very quickly.
Wow, they have quite a number of satellites up there if they're able to do pretty extensive coverage, obviously, and they're pretty far up.
Constellation does something a little bit different, and so you want an aggregator who takes the data streams from all of those and then repackages it for you in a way that's convenient. That makes some assumptions. You're not going to see, a dog walking on its hind legs at that resolution, but you may see there is a big light at a particular time, and it stays for, an hour or so. You may have a chance to be able to go back and pick it up.
Oh man, that's
so
great.
You make some assumptions about what it is that you're looking for, obviously. So
exactly,
that's a limitation.
Well, what we're doing with the San Luis Valley Project is putting up a live stream all three cameras, and we spent a modest amount of money developing, detect motion, record motion, with obviously a lot of buffers and filters to trigger true-faux events as opposed to false positives. But if we do get into a position where we have a triangulated array or at least two cameras, and we do get an event, it would be great to dial up supplemental images from way up in space, looking straight down, to see if we can, coalesce data together.
Yes.
That's very, very exciting.
If you have trouble getting through that, in terms of transparency, I have financed that particular company. I mean, I'm one of several investors in the company, so and I follow them pretty well. So I may be able to help you get specific images if you want to.
Wow, thank you so much. Oh man, you have no idea what that means. Whoa!
So that's the kind of technology that's moving very quickly, and that we can take advantage of.
So what do you think of this? What do you think of the technology now? I mean, you must be really excited.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is something that we were thinking of in the 90s. I could tell you funny stories about what we did, and we eventually gave up because we realized the market wasn't ready. But we actually started a company in 1994 to do this with some help from NASA. And actually, we could do it. But it was kind of heroic, and people were not ready to buy the kind of images we could generate. Today, the market is enormous. So now is the time for those companies, and the technology has become so much better. But another suggestion, so there's three things to look at. One is Cameleo, and I encourage you to buy that little, quote, novel, because I think that stuff really happened, and it's staggering. The second thing, here I am. I shouldn't be advertising other people's books.
Yeah, you're pushing other people's books and not your own.
This is supposed to be about my book, fellows. But that's part of the thing. I mean, I love to alert people to good stuff. The other thing is the satellite imagery that's now available to the public, essentially. And the third thing is, do you know about Häsdalen in Sweden? Well, right. They've done what you're talking about doing. They have 3 cameras. They are streaming on the internet, which is not that hard to do. But there are a number of articles especially from the Italians. There's an Italian university that has set up a lab up there in Häsdalen Valley in Sweden, and they're trying to catch spectra, because it's one thing to see a light, and it's another to know.
It's another thing to see spectra. Yeah, but you can't do that with digital. You have to have an analog. You have to have an analog of the light.
Yes, but if you get a spectrum, you can digitize the spectrum, right?
So, sure. But the initial data has to be from an analog, like a telescope or a spotting scope or some sort of analog light gathering device. Separated into the light spectra, and then of course digitize that, and then you can you're off to the races.
Well, you're pretty close to. I mean, they are monitoring that valley, but the valley is a few kilometers wide. So I think they just put a grating in front of the lens.
Yeah, that's all you need to do. Yeah.
Let's do our break, and we got more to come with Jacques Vallee and Jean and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, I want to tell you about my favorite graphics app. It's the award-winning Graphic Converter. Graphic Converter is the universal genius for photo editing on your Mac. Join over 1.5 million loyal users for this Swiss Army knife photo editing app. It gives you all you expect from a top-flight image editing app with tons of features, and most important, it's easy to use. It's also far less expensive than that other app that you can only get by subscription. You know the one I'm talking about. What's more, you can get 20% off with your order right now. So write this down to learn about Graphic Converter. Go to www.lemkesoft.de/Gene Let me spell that. www.lemkesoft.de/Gene.
Have you checked your Google search results lately? Search results are usually the first impression that people form of you or your business, so make sure that they create a positive impression with ReputationDefender.com. What the internet says about you can have a big impact on your life and your livelihood, even if it's not true. Fortunately, you can now control how you look online and in online search results with ReputationDefender.com. Call 800-831-0771 now. That's 800-831-0771 for your free reputation analysis. If you have negative material from an ex-employee, upset patient, or former client, newspaper article, legal issue, social media, or other source showing up in your search results, you can combat it with ReputationDefender.com. Our dedicated experts in patented technology can help make your online search results look their best. Call 800-831-0771 to learn more. 800-831-0771. That's 800-831-0771. Or visit ReputationDefender.com.
North Korea openly threatens the U.S. and launches a new missile every other week. Their warhead of choice? Electromagnetic pulse. Such an event would cripple the U.S. power grid for years and leave millions in the dark. Are you ready? You can be with a Solarc EMP-hardened solar generator. Solarc works day in and day out to keep your essentials protected. You can have peace of mind knowing your power will be there when you most need it. Visit PortableSolarLLC.com to see EMP testing. That's PortableSolarLLC.com. Energy insurance for your family.
How did you become addicted? A friend? Were you at a party and someone said, "Hey, try this"? Then you got the cold sweats and started shaking. And the more you did it, the more it didn't work. So you switched to the needle. Now you're a train wreck. Drinking, drugging, broke. Your family hates you. And you hate you. Get out of your hell on earth now. Call the Detox and Treatment Helpline today for immediate help. In many cases, your insurance may cover the costs. We can't guarantee it, but we can guarantee we have what you need to change your life for the better. Pick up your cell phone and call right now. 855-700-2979. 855-700-2979. 855-700-2979. That's 855-700-2979.
You want to save money in a place that gives you growth, control, and certainty without stock market risk or tax risk, and you want guarantees and you want it all tax-free. That's a tall order. But you can get all of that with properly designed participating whole life insurance. Most people think life insurance pays after you're dead. That's true. But you can have tax-free access to use your life insurance while you're alive. Get the free book to find out how. Call 702-660-7000.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
With Gene and Chris and Jacques Vallee, we're continuing a fascinating discussion about discoveries of the strange and the unknown. Chris?
Has Dallin a real inspiration for my project in the San Luis Valley? We were talking about blaze gratings, dividing light into its spectra. The amount of scientific information that you can glean from dividing the light and analyzing the light spectra is way more than the oohs and ahs of some sort of optical event at night. What sort of gear are they using up there? Do you know?
I don't remember. It would be, there are a number of scientific publications about Hesdalen, and people are still divided as to whether it's UFOs or a natural process going on.
I personally think it's natural myself.
That's what they publish. But if you take those guys aside, over a couple of beers, they'll tell you that they've seen things that were not, they don't think are natural.
Really?
But most of the things, it's an area of mines. There is outgassing from some of the terrain, from some of the mines.
Yeah.
They mine a very unusual element called scandium, and scandium is used in high tech again, and there are only a few mines around the world, so it's a pretty special area. And scandium can be luminous in contact with oxygen, that kind of thing. So yes, it could be natural. Most of it could be natural, but they also see things they can't explain.
Right. Some of the lights do tend to give the impression of some form of intelligence or directed movement, that sort of thing. In the San Luis Valley, for instance, we have billions of dollars of methane underground. So that, combined with the largest Rift Valley outside of the Great Rift Valley in Africa, the Rift Valley that goes through that area up the Sangres, goes from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to Leadville, which is halfway up in the middle of Colorado. Combine some methane with a lot of quartz and piezoelectric possible static discharges, that sort of thing, gives you a sense that you really have to wade through a lot of potential natural explanations before you get to something high strange. That does not explain away what appear to be hard, discoidal, metal-looking nuts and bolts type craft. You can't, say that that's as the result of a earthquake fault or methane. Good daylight sightings obviously contain a lot more information if you're monitoring an area than anything at night, with the exception of maybe a blaze grating to, separate light into its spectral elements. Let's get back to your book now, or your books, I should say, the series of books. One of the things that I've been saying for years is people should be writing everything down. If you're an investigator or researcher, you should have a diary, a journal. As Jacques knows, I had an extensive journal for my San Luis Valley work. How can we get people to properly not only investigate, research an area that's maybe in their backyard and document it properly, but how do we get them to a place where they can properly analyze and objectively look at what they're gathering and what these experiences are trying to tell them or tell all of us? I mean, what can we do? I mean, there's so many people out there that really want to get involved and be part of the solution, but I don't really think that there's really much of an avenue for them to really be brought up to speed in a way that can really educate them, how to unfold their process correctly. Do you have any advice?
Well, the encouraging fact is that people keep blogs these days on the internet, and they write about, what that cat did today, and it's a good medium to keep notes and to keep diaries. You don't have to write every day, and unless your life is really interesting, there won't be something to write about every day. But, whenever you gain some insight or you feel that you've learned something, I have a friend who was diagnosed with a pretty nasty form of cancer of the throat, and he thought that what he was going through could be useful to other patients, his relationship with doctors, the effects of medication and so on. And he started a blog that was fascinating. Now, he's also a good writer. He didn't write every day, but certainly wrote every week or a couple of times a week. And eventually he survived. He was cured. But that, I'm sure it helped a lot of people. And, you can do that, can do the same thing in this field. It's going to be, when I look back at my notes for a year, for example, it's going to be pretty boring because it's going to be fairly repetitive, and you forget that you've already written something and you rewrite it, and hopefully you'll rewrite it the same way, but not always. To me, it's a good discipline because it gives me an insight into what I'm learning and what I'm forgetting. I have friends from that era who had amazing memories, and I always envied the way they could tell you what they had for breakfast, 3 years before. And I certainly can't do that. I don't have a good memory, which maybe is why I'm writing a lot of things down. But I find now that their memory isn't as good as it used to be maybe 30 years ago. And they misremember things that we said or things that they did that I remember because I have the record. And I think that's important because people rewrite their life. And that's fortunately, I mean, our brain does that. Our brain forgets the painful things to save us because otherwise we would be overwhelmed with, all the bad things that people have done to us or said to us and things like that. And it remembers good things, which is also a nice feature of the brain. But in research, you want to record everything because you may need to go back to an experiment you did 2 weeks ago and see if maybe you forgot something, or maybe you can learn something from it. So I was doing it in that spirit. The first thing about writing is also to entertain your reader. I mean, there is no excuse for boring people to death. If you publish everything you write, you're going to be boring people to death. And there is such a thing as, somebody said that there is no such thing as good writing. It's really good editing. Writing is one thing, but you have to spend a lot more time editing. And with a diary, of course, you cannot edit because you cannot change the words. What you can do is you can cut the repetitions, you can make it more clear, and that's how you go from 1,000 pages of junk that nobody will read to 400 or 500 pages that people will enjoy.
Let's do our break here for 2 more segments with Jacques Vallee and Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
You want to save money in a place that gives you growth, control, and certainty without stock market risk or tax risk, and you want guarantees and you want it all tax-free. That's a tall order. But you can get all of that with properly designed participating whole life insurance. Most people think life insurance pays after you're dead. That's true. But you can have tax-free access to use your life insurance while you're alive. Get the free book to find out how. Call 702-660-7000.
Would it be okay if you had 2 paychecks instead of 1? I'm Pharmacist Keith. Dr. Wallach, the Dead Doctors Don't Lie guy, and myself want to show you how to get an extra paycheck every month, creating an extra income that will last for years to come by joining Dr. Wallach's crusade, spreading his message of better health. To learn more, visit radio.recordedvideo.com. That's radio.recordedvideo.com, radio.recordedvideo.com, or call 866-257-3105 for a recorded message.
Are you happy washing your hands with harsh chemicals? Are you happy doing laundry with detergents? Are you happy paying high prices? Find your happiness with Pure Soap. These all-natural, earth-friendly Pure Soaps are the very best you've ever used. Buy in bulk. Get a 12, 36, or 48-month supply, or get items individually and still save big. You're getting soap products twice as good as what you're using now, earth-friendly and natural soaps. Your family deserves the best. Happiness is 5starsoap.com. Why not put your money up the drain for a change? See them at 5starsoap.com or call 1-800-340-7091 for a catalog. Cal Ben Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars and give you good old-fashioned real soaps that are triple concentrated. Soaps made from vegetable and coconut oils. See their full selection of soaps at 5starsoap.com. That's FIVE starsoap.com or call 1-800-340-7091 for a catalog.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when your identity is hacked, it's a nightmare. Hi everyone, Paul with Liberty ID. Did you know that children are 52 times more likely to suffer from identity theft than adults? Is your family prepared? Identity monitoring will not fix the fallout. Liberty ID does. Here's an exciting offer for listeners to this station. Go to libertyid.com and cover your entire family, your spouse, your children, and your parents for only $129 a year. That's right, $129 a year. Use promo code FREE TRIAL and we'll give you the first 60 days free. That's libertyid.com, promo code FREE TRIAL. Prepare your family for less than half what other companies charge for only monitoring. libertyid.com, promo code FREE TRIAL. libertyid.com, the name in identity theft restoration.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-765-9681 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-765-9681. Again, that's 800-765-9681.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
Yes, I don't like writing 1,000-page books myself. I think I actually did a couple of computer books that were 1,000 or 1,200 pages. Don't even ask.
The reference books, are different, but if it's talking about your life, nobody wants to go
that's
500 pages of it.
Yeah. Well, I must say, my book, Stalking the Herd, which I was in a quandary of how much I should include, because it really will be the only standalone book that looks at a case history of the cattle mutilation mystery. And I stuck to my guns, and I included a lot of cases in there, in a timeline format to show the reader, the extensiveness and how just overwhelming the amount of cases were. And instead of, delineating out every single case, I tried to highlight the important cases that debunk the debunkers, basically. And then just mention the other cases in passing. But, I've taken some flack. People say, well, you should have condensed all those cases into a more manageable format. And I disagree. I think it was important to put on the record an unfolding of thousands and thousands of cases of cattle deaths that were not explained. And
yes.
It's one thing to have a diary and have too much information. It's another thing to have a standalone encyclopedia of a particular phenomenon.
Well, it's a archival preservation, and that should be integral. So you want everything. The other thing about a diary, though, is that the events that you're talking about are in the context of what happens to somebody's life. And, so much of science these days is completely dry, which is why there is no, there are histories of the internet, but they are written by people who were not there, by historians and by journalists who have interviewed the people who were there. But the people who were there, with a few exceptions like me, didn't write anything at the time. So you lose the human dimension. I mean, these people had, wives and girlfriends and the cars and kids and histories of with their boss and with their company and all that should be in there, because so much is otherwise is incomprehensible. There was in '97. Two groups of, the Bank of America and one major group of financial underwriters put up money to do a celebration of 50 years of the transistor. Transistor was invented in 1947, coincidentally.
Bell Labs?
In 1997, it was 50 years. So they invited all the pioneers who were still alive, and they invited 1,000 people. And my wife and I were lucky enough to be among the people invited. It was a fairly formal dinner at a big place in San Jose, center of Silicon Valley. And these people came up one after the other, and they had 5 or 10 minutes to talk about what they had done. And all of them, one after the other, were saying things like, well, I was working at Fairchild, and I was working at Bell Labs, and I had always wanted to try something. And my boss said, if you work one more time, on this, I'm going to fire you. So we would come back on weekends and work on the thing when he wasn't there, and that's how we discovered, this kind of memory. That's how we discovered this kind of fiber. That's how we discovered this kind of integrated circuit. That's why, all the great discoveries were made by people who were told that, if you work on this one more hour, I'll fire you. The transistor is fascinating because there is a movie that is on the internet about, those guys, the 3 Nobel Prizes.
Well, shockingly, it's a very good documentary, and I recommend it highly. It's incredible.
Well, if you look at the documentary, you'll see that their little experiment is on a table that has rollers, and most people miss that. The reason their experimental table has rollers is that when they are done with it, they roll it into a closet and they close the closet so that their boss won't know that they've been working on the transistor. Because Bell Labs was all about electronic tubes. Yeah. They were selling triodes, and they thought the transistor was a dumb idea. In fact, the transistor had been patented in Germany in 1934. So it doesn't come from Roswell. That's
well. I was going to say, I'm sorry, the ghost of Philip Corso. Sorry, there, pal. There is an evidence train. There's also an evidence train for fiber optics. There's an evidence train for Velcro. You could go down the list. Night vision technology, for instance.
Yes. Well, fiber optic was known a long, long time ago. It wasn't known as a form of high-speed digital communication. But in 1947, there was no digital communication anyway. So, but the people knew how to drive light around with fibers, with glass fibers. So,
constantly find myself arguing.
To his defense, Colonel Corso never pretended to be a scientist. He had a job to do with some strange materials, and he gave it to a few companies, and there it went.
We really we're running out of time, and I'd really like to ask some questions from a very up-to-speed listening audience that we have. We have a bunch of people, posters that are way smarter than I am, and I'd like to fire a couple of questions at you. Some of them are pretty general, but let me start out. A question from William Strathman. Dr. Vallee, from 1977 until today, the last 40 years, have you learned anything new about the UFO phenomenon? You can make that as short or as long as you like.
and I have 6 minutes, right? So, yes. In 77, the Gestalt, the model that everybody was working with was an ET model, an extraterrestrial model. And it's still there. It's still good. We cannot put any limit on what can happen in this big universe, and maybe a few other universes like it. And so it's always there. The problem is, one thing we've learned is that the ET explanation just doesn't explain the observations, which in science is a problem. So we have to look to cast a wider net. Also, we now know that the phenomenon has other aspects. I don't want to say other dimensions, but certainly other aspects. It has a very prominent, obvious psychic aspect that people were rejecting in 1977, saying, well, you're talking about ghost stories. Well, we're not talking about ghost stories.
It's still being rejected today.
Well, yeah, but that's fine. But, people are still rejecting the internet in some places. So that's fine. That's not going to stop the research, but now we have to integrate it with what we have learned about consciousness, about the role of consciousness in physics, not just in the paranormal, but in quantum mechanics, and we have to take that into account in the experiments that we do. And when we talk to witnesses, let's take an extra hour and say, tell the witness, if you go back into what was happening to you around that time, what else is there that you haven't told me?
Let's get the answer to that in our final few minutes with Jacques Vallee and Jean and Chris. We'll find out what they haven't told him. You're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
As you know, neighbors, web hosting can be pretty cheap, but not all hosting is the same. DreamHost wins Best of Awards year after year. You get unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and even the low-cost plans put your sites on high-performance SSDs. Want to know more about what DreamHost has to offer? Go to technightowl.com/host. Once again, that's technightowl.com/host.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on our distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Fully cooked, ready-to-eat bacon. I'm talking thick, meaty, center-cut presidential bacon. Savory and delicious. I buy some, I use some, I store some. Awesome. No refrigeration needed with a 10-year shelf life. NASA-packed technology. Bacon. Fully cooked, fully hydrated, ready to eat right from the packed bacon or warm and served. Life-saving, ready-to-eat bacon. 10-year shelf life bacon. Ships free at fullycookedbacon.com. Fullycookedbacon.com.
Did you know children are 52 times more likely to suffer from identity theft than adults? Credit alerts will not fix the fallout. Liberty ID does. And here's an exciting offer just for you. Go to libertyid.com and cover your entire family, your spouse, your children, and your parents for only $129 a year. Use promo code FREE TRIAL and we'll give you the first 60 days free. That's libertyid.com, promo code FREE TRIAL. libertyid.com. libertyid.com.
It's a no-brainer. A Big Berkey water filter is the one you need, period. You need a water filter that removes chlorine, fluoride, pharmaceuticals, BPA, and other endocrine disruptors, pesticides, bacteria, viruses, and much more, right? And does it all at only 2 cents per gallon. Get the original and most trusted name in gravity water filtration, Big Berkey. And now GCN listeners receive 5% off ceramic filter systems using code GCN. Call or click 1-877-99-BERKEY or BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
The answer to being in control of your own healthcare is freedom from insurance. Become part of a group of self-pay patients that come together to share in each other's medical expenses. Individual share amounts begin at $107 a month and $347 for families. Choose from 3 health-sharing programs. Holistic treatments may be eligible for sharing. See guidelines. Discount programs available for dental, vision, and pharmacy. Go to libertyoncall.org. That's libertyoncall.org.
Hi, this is James Fox from Chasing UFOs. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Sir, let's pick up on that question for the final few minutes here, Jacques. What haven't they told you? Interesting start.
Well, I'll give you an example. Colonel Coyne with a helicopter in Ohio, the case that was mentioned at the United Nations in 1978. Okay, everybody has been arguing about this, what kind of UFO it was that lifted the helicopter with, the Army guys coming back from, if you remember, from a medical test. So I took Coyne aside, outside the session, and I asked him, what went through your mind when that was happening, and you were piloting that helicopter. And I said, what did you do? And he said, Dr. Vallee, I closed my eyes and prepared to die. Okay, that's pretty clear from an Army guy piloting a big helicopter that was doing things that it couldn't do because it was being lifted at very, very high speed by a light. And I said, well, what else happened in your life afterwards? And he said, well, my sleep patterns changed for a number of weeks. And then I had the feeling I could communicate with lower level life, that I had developed an interest in insects, and I thought that there was a level of consciousness where I could communicate with, or at least understand, insect life at a consciousness level. Well, that's not in the Army report. It's not in the report to the United Nations. It's not in all those things. You have to take the time to, have a cup of coffee with the guy and make it clear that you're there as a human being, talking to somebody who has had an experience. And of course, I've had my own experience with the phenomenon. You have to gain the trust of people and talk to them on that level. And then you're going to learn all kinds of things. And to finish, the model we have of phenomenon today is completely different from the model we had in 1977.
You see, this is an argument I've raised with people like MUFON.
Me too. There should be a whole list of follow-up questions, and investigators should be keeping in touch with people, finding out how their lives have changed, how their views have changed, how their feelings about religion, about spirituality, about consciousness. There's none of this in the MUFON model. None of it.
Well, MUFON is not a monolith. I mean, there are people within MUFON who are certainly interested in that, and you can find them.
Well, I know that. I've talked to people, as has Chris on the Paracast, and these are people who are investigators for MUFON, and they have an open, enlightened viewpoint of the subject. They've read your works and other works to expand their horizons, and certainly they'd be happy to deal with that kind of structure. But that structure doesn't exist on the organizational level. And when I asked once Jan Harzan, why aren't you considering the witness too, not just the event as being some kind of independent thing? Oh, they saw a UFO, let's get the information, what did it look like, with a coin held at arm's length, the usual stuff. What about the witness, the experiences? What happened before, what happened after, their family background, all the thousands of questions that field investigators like Chris would come up with. And he said, well, if they give us that information, the experiencer
is more important than the experience.
Right.
I will always contend that is really the total blind spot, I think, for investigative ufology, is they don't realize it's not so much what happened, it's the effect of that experience individually on the experiencers, but also how that then dovetails into the culture and has tremendous impact.
I don't want to criticize MUFON. I admire MUFON. They are the only organization that today will go out there and preserve a record. But you have to remember the mission they set for themselves was to impress the scientists and convince them to join in that research and to look at UFOs. And they think, rightly or wrongly, that to impress the scientists, they have to focus on the physical parameters. And, if it's their mission, I'm not going to second guess that. I wish there was another organization somewhere that was more looking at. That's one of the reasons that Alan Hynek left Chicago, that he wanted to pioneer in a different kind of organization than QFOS or MUFON or a number of others, and look more at the consciousness aspects, which was fascinating to him. That was a topic of conversation when we were talking. I mean, that's what we were talking about.
Dr. Hynek moved, I believe, to Scottsdale, Arizona, right?
Yes.
That was probably 5 or 10 years before I moved out here.
Yeah, well, that's when he got involved with APRO. And
the story is in volume 3. He, by then, we didn't realize it, but he was already ill. And, there was that project just couldn't really get off the ground. And that's a pity.
Yeah. Well, it's Dr. Vallee. There's so many things that I wanted to cover in this brief 2 hours. I'm telling you, if you can somehow carve out some time to come back and talk with us, we'd really love to continue the conversation and really look in more detail at some of the wonderful, unfolding scenarios that you have in
new things
the
to
journals.
talk about. And I'd love to learn more about what Chris is doing with his research.
What we could do here is maybe, in a month or two, if you have the time, Jacques, we'd be happy to have you back, continue this discussion. There are questions from listeners that we haven't a hope or a prayer of getting to.
Some very good questions, and I feel remiss.
But you see, they'll attack Chris. You see, I'll say it's Chris's fault because he's the person who reads the questions. So I'll say, it's not Jacques' fault because he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, no. I accept all responsibility. Go ahead.
All right.
And I'll hear about it later, believe me. Oh, boy.
But really, so we'll talk. We'll stay in touch. And then
that's the deal. There will be new cases. I'm working on one case that I'll be able to talk to at more length, in 2 or 3 months.
Right.
So let's do that.
Woo. Okay.
This will be a kind of to be continued kind of show, which is, I guess, the most fascinating kind. And you can bet on after the Paracast this week, Chris and I will have some really interesting things to say. We may even pull a couple of panel members on there to further the discussion, like a Greg Bishop or someone. I have some ideas in mind. Jacques, if our listeners wanted to follow up on this, do you have an active website or a way they can check out your current stuff?
Yeah, it's just my name. The challenge is to spell my French, French name, JACQUES, and then VALLEE in one word.
With no appensé, we can get away with just EE.
The accent died off a long time ago.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm telling you, like I said, I'm not a fanboy, but boy, I am president of your fan club, whether you like it or not.
As websites go, my website is pretty lame, but it does have a P.O. Box address if people want to write to me,
Sure thing. We can be found on Twitter if you go look for the Paracast on Twitter. We also have 2 Paracast fan clubs on Facebook. Jacques, don't ask me how that happened. No, one's a group, one's a community, and it makes no difference to me. It's whichever one you want. We have After the Paracast, the exclusive feature from the Paracast Plus. You also get the commercial-free version of this show, and you get lots of other good stuff all tremendous things. And the After the Paracast podcast, by the way, has had some amazing guests and discussions and debates. Like last week, we had Randall Murphy on the show, and he was in the mood to debate on Travis Walton with our guests. So that was very interesting. So it's something you should check into. It's not just me and Chris kibitzing about pop culture, which is very important to our society. To learn more, go to plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com. The prices start just $1.49 a week. We have monthly, annual, 5-year, and lifetime. If you go for the long-term subscriptions, by the way, have free books and other goodies. We give you stuff to do that. Plus.theparacast.com. Jacques Vallee, thanks for joining us on the Paracast.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris and Gene. Pleasure talking to you.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.